Of course, he had to take me back the next morning early, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I left the barracks bag at home. And when they started discharging me, they said, "Where's your clothes?" I said, "Well, somewhere or another that trip I've lost them." They give me everything back again, overcoat and all.
Really?
I kept telling them I didn't want them. I already had them, but I wasn't going to tell them that.
Yeah.
They give it all to me again before they discharge me.
Mm-hmm. So, where were you on VE Day? How did that impact you? The end of the war.
I have no idea.
So,
Somewhere up there for, in Germany. Just,
okay. But how did you feel when the war
well,
was over?
I didn't know it. I
Really?
didn't know it till later. No, I didn't know the war was over. We fought 3 or 4 days after the war was over. Germans didn't know it either, you know, but of course when we did, why we were, well, really the way we found it out was the Germans began to surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Man, they coming out, but well, 50, 60 at a time, coming out with their hands over their heads and their rifles stowed away, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of them hollering, "Me Polski, me Polski." They took Poland sometime or another, and all these Germans claimed to be Poland's.
Really? Wow. Did you ever see or come across any of the concentration camps?
One of them.
Really?
They had already moved a lot of people out. A lot of all the ones that was in such bad shape that probably died was still there. And there was a lot of dead bodies in boxcars, just stacks of
Yeah.
them. And well, it was awful.
Mm-hmm.
But it had been liberated before we got in it, but they had moved everything, you know.
Mm-hmm. What about American POWs? Did you come across any POW camps?
No,
No?
never did.
Okay. Well, the war's over. And, I guess you said you had to stay there about 6 weeks longer. I would think
Yeah.
you had plenty of points to come home. But can you tell us the story about your extra 6 weeks you had to stay at the end?
Well, I was sergeant of the guard. The war was over, and there was there was another little incident before that that you might want to hear. They was taking our food to feed the German soldiers. They'd captured so many of them, they had to eat. All we were getting was mutton out of England. I don't know whether you ever ate any mutton or not,
It's
but
been a while. I've had lamb before, but
well,
yeah,
I didn't like mutton.
yeah, I'm not a big mutton fan.
But that's about all we was getting to eat was mutton. And all the cooks that we had, they knew I was a cowboy. And one of them come to me and told me, said, "Did you see all them yearling cows down the road down there?" And I said, "Yeah, I've seen them." He said, "Why don't you go down there and kill us one of them, take a Jeep and a trailer and bring it up here and we'll eat steak." And I said, "Well, we'll not do that." He said, "There ain't no sense us feeding them soldiers and them eating our food and us not getting nothing to eat." So I did. I took a trailer and a Jeep and took a man with me. Went down there and shot me a big yearling and we loaded him. brought him back up there, and we had steak. Of course, they didn't tell the officers about this. We had to eat outside, and they was eating in a building. And when they finally was looking out there, and they seen us eating steak, and they was eating mutton. That didn't go over too good. Finally, they told the cook, said, I don't know what's going on, but said, we want to eat just as good as they're eating. Well, in the deal, I killed three yearlings that I'd used there. One of them, why, there was kind of a big ditch, and I'd shot this yearling already, and we got him loaded, just fixing to leave. And here cometh, I guess, the owner. Of course, he was just a civilian. I was kind of up on the bank beside of him, and I didn't know how much trouble we was in, you know. Didn't think we'd be in it shooting. And I didn't know whether we was in France or Germany or where we was at. Anyway, I had that old 45, and he walked right down in front of me. I didn't know what to do with him. And I just thought, once I hit him right upside the head with that 45, I guess knocked him out. And hoped I didn't kill him. And we come on in then. I seen him later. He wasn't hurt much. But he come up complaining somebody was stealing his cattle. So that put a stop to us getting his cows, but we began to get food after that. That
Okay.
was one of the things. And then the next thing I had to do with the Jeep, why, the war was over. Officers got a whiskey ration all the time during the war, you know. Non-coms and regular soldiers, they didn't get no whiskey.
What kind of whiskey did they get?
Well, I didn't have no idea, but it was bottled whiskey, you know. Anyway, why, when the war was over, they started giving it to the non-coms.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a mistake. Anyway, I was on the sergeant of the guards that night, and they were having something at the battalion. I'm going to say a dance because they had some either French or German girls down there. But I was working. I had Jeep drivers to take us out and change the guards, you know. But when I got ready to change again 4 hours later, why, all the Jeep drivers was drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, there was a boy there that'd been in my platoon and had so many points against him that he's probably still in the army somewhere. But they took him back to the battalion and made a Jeep driver out of him. And he, he I asked him to go with me to deliver the men, and he said, no, he is having too much fun for that. You take it and deliver the men. So I took his Jeep, had never drove one before, never even been in the front of one, hadn't drove nothing in 2 years, had drove a whole lot before that. Anyway, I took him and delivered my men. On the way back, I met a sergeant and either French girl or Germany, whichever one we was in, going down the road, and of course the sergeant, he's drunk, and I stopped to pick him up, and he told me, said, this girl wants to go home. She just lives on down the road. Would you take her? And I said, yeah, I would. Anyway, why, I was going down a good cement road, probably too fast. All at once, the road just quit, dropped off into a little single gravel road that seemed like I dropped down about a foot. And that Jeep began going just sideways. I fought that thing for about 100 yards before it turned over.
Really?
Threw us all out, knocked him out. I guess it didn't hurt the girl much because she jumped up and run on down the road. I never did see her again. Anyway, cut my leg. They took me to the hospital. I already had points ready to go home, everything ready to ship me out. I had to stay 6 more weeks till my leg healed.
Oh my
That way
gosh.
they wouldn't let me go with the bandage on it. Well, that's the way that all happened.
So then you got out of the hospital, and did you go back on the Queen Elizabeth? Do you remember how you came back home?
I sure do.
Yeah.
I didn't ride a grasshopper, but I would have if they'd been one handy. I come back on a Liberty ship, and it popped and creaked all the way back. No, it wasn't, but that didn't make us any difference. We was coming home.
You're going the right direction. So that's all you
Yeah.
knew. Yeah.
We got off in New York City. Well, dropped back when I first started over there. I'm going to just throw this in extra.
Mhm.
They put us on this Queen Elizabeth sitting there in the harbor, and I went up to look over the side of it, and we probably wasn't 50, 60 feet away from the shore. I looked at it, I said, I can swim that. I think I'll get off this thing. And I looked at that water. It is full of ice and filthy as it could be, dirty. Of course, we was way up. I decided maybe I better stay on that
Yeah, probably a
ship.
good idea.
But I was ready to get off of it. But anyway, when we got back, why, we come back on this Liberty ship. Took us a lot longer than it did go over. They unloaded us in New York and marched us off over there. And I haven't figured this out yet. They took us to a striptease show that Sally Rand was putting on.
Uh-huh.
Why in the world soldiers been gone 2 years and take you to a striptease show? I
Yeah.
never figured that
Yeah.
out.
Bring the guys back and then tease them. That's not good. No.
I never, I never understood that,
Well,
but we enjoyed it.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure you did.
Anyway, then they put us on train coming back, put me over the train that I've been on the.
Okay. Tell me about this story about the Ukrainian boy.
Well,
And then we can wrap this up. I know
yeah,
we've been talking for a while and stuff, but that's a fascinating story to me.
this this little boy was just when we'd come back from behind the lines, and of course the kitchen would set up back there when we eat dinner or something. This little boy would come up and we could tell he was hungry, and we fed him. I made sure that he got something to eat. And he got to where he wanted to stay with me every time he come back off of the lines, why that little kid was there.
How old
And
was he, do you think?
I I didn't know. I couldn't understand him. He didn't talk English at that time, but he was small.
Hmm.
We figured 8 or 9 years old.
Okay.
But anyway, why we didn't know his name. We got to calling him Eddie. I don't know exactly why. But anyway, why every time I come back, why he stayed with me while I was back there. And I got to liking him. And I wanted to bring him home with me.
Hmm.
And I got to talking to the officials, about it, and they'd all going to tell me, well, they'd find out something. And of course, when it come my time to come home, I talked about it. They told me, said, you haven't got a chance at getting him. You don't have you're single, you don't have a home to take him to, you don't have a job, they just say no way you can get him. So I had to leave him there. But then when I wasn't there, why he stayed back at the motor pool with one of the drivers back there, a fellow by the name of Smiley. We called him Worm sometime. He chewed tobacco all the time. But he kept him then and had him when I left. And I got a letter from his wife later after I was home telling me that they brought him home in a barracks bag and that they had him. And I didn't know, well, I thought Smiley brought him back, but I read in a deal just a few days ago that Smiley come home just like I did on points and left him over there. But he wanted him, and another fellow brought him back and sent him through Ellis Island. And after 5 or 6 weeks, they turned him over to Smiley, and I got a letter from his wife telling me that they had him and adopted him, was sending him to school,
Wow.
and I didn't have sense enough to stay in contact with her.
The way I understand it, it was Sergeant Cook that smuggled him in this duffel bag.
My goodness.
But they were all in line, The guy, then halfway across, they found out the boy was there. They court-martialed
Ah,
Cook, but during the trial, they dismissed it. Said, no, we're not going to court-martial you. That's how Sergeant Smiley got him. And actually, we found documents that his name now is Eddie Smiley.
Eddie Smiley, really?
Yeah.
So are you guys trying to track him down at this point?
Yeah. Tanya at the Air and Space Museum, she has all the connections.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Trying to find out what happened to him.
Yeah, I'd like to know what happened to him.
I'm sure he'd like to see you again, too.
Well, I hope he'd remember me.
I'm pretty sure he probably remembers
Yeah.
you.
He'd be about 82, 83 years old.
Yeah. My goodness. Well, um, in the end, I think you've said you've dealt with PTSD, throughout your life, and you try to forget these experiences in the war. Um, uh, what made you decide to start talking about this?
Well, I kept reading about it in the newspaper when it started coming out every other Monday or whatever it was. Tim Stanley was the man that was interviewing all of them. And every time I read it, it was Air Corps, Navy, Marines, artillery people. I never really said anything in there out of the infantry. And I read one story then about an Air Corps man, and he's bragging about what all he done, and I'm sure he did. And I didn't hold that against him for sure, but kind of aggravated me. And I went in, called this number that's down under there, and this feller answered, and I didn't say hello or goodbye or nothing. I just said, why don't you put somebody in there out of the infantry? And he didn't say nothing.
Hmm.
A little bit, why he said, well, he said, I don't know any.
Doesn't know anyone in the infantry.
I said, do you? And I said, yeah, I know one. And he said, well, what infantry? And I said, well, I was the first man on Bloody Omaha Beach. And he didn't say nothing for 5 minutes. A little bit he said, well, I want to talk to you. And he made an appointment to come out and did. Come out to my house. We went in the kitchen table and sat down, and he began interviewing me. He told me, he said, my interviews last 45 minutes or an hour. And I said, well, all right. 4:30 that evening, his photographer told him, said, we got to go. We got another appointment.
So how long had he been there?
Since noon.
Since noon, so 4 hours. My goodness.
It may not have been that long, but it was around noon sometime. Yeah. Anyway, that started it.
Okay.
I hadn't talked to nobody about it. I didn't tell my wife about it. I didn't tell my mother and daddy about it. They didn't, nobody asked me. And, well, I never told nobody. My brother was in the Air Corps. We didn't talk about it. He didn't tell me what he done. I didn't tell him what I'd done.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that your generation, they just didn't talk about those things?
I don't know. I've thought about that since. Why in the world? I'd have sure liked for my folks to have knew what I'd done,
Yeah.
but I didn't. I don't know why we didn't.
There was a Marine that lived in Tulsa that I interviewed named Harvey Hunt, and he was wounded on Tinian and was sent back to Hawaii. He got shot through the mouth also, sent back to Hawaii. Well, his dad came over from the U.S. and was there with him in Hawaii while he healed up. And I asked him, I was like, you had to have had some pretty deep conversations with your dad. And he goes, no, we didn't talk about it. I was like, I marvel at that with your generation, where that comes from and what that code is.
Yeah.
I think it's selfless. I think it is extremely, I don't know how to describe it, but it's the sort of thing that, I have a immense amount of respect for guys like yourself and people of your generation that don't call attention to themselves, don't want to glorify, or maybe it was a matter of you not wanting your family members to think different of you compared to what they knew of you before you left.
Yeah.
No,
I never talked to my wife about it. I never told her anything, but she knew about it.
Yeah.
She had to put up with me at night. That's when it come back to me.
Yeah.
When I don't know, you got where you even dreaded to go to sleep. You fought the war over. Of course, her being there made it a lot easier. It was, but I don't know if tonight she had to wake me up. She'd tell me the war's over. You're home.
Yeah. Were there certain dreams or experiences that continued to play over and over in your head? Were there obviously certain things that just you couldn't shake?
Mostly it was the dead people you see.
Mm.
I seen wounded men sat down by the side of a tree and freeze to death. People that could have been saved if somebody had been there to pick them up, you
Yeah.
know. But when you're fighting, why, fighting wasn't like the movies. When a man got wounded, he is wounded. He's behind you.
Yeah.
You didn't quit. If he needed to turn on his leg, why, he didn't get it from us. Somebody, the medics had to come along, and they didn't have near enough of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the bravest people over there, was the medics.
Yeah.
They were out there with us without a weapon of any kind. A lot of them did carry weapons, but they picked them up, and I don't blame them for that.
Sure.
That'd been me, I'd have had two of them.
Yeah. I know. I can't
But
imagine.
anyway, that was the kind of dreams I had, was of the dead people, and well, boys I knew that died,
Yeah.
I didn't know their names. I can see their faces now, but I can't name them.
Mm-hmm.
But and I don't know. They're just
Sure.
well, just things that she'd wake me up in the middle of the night when I'd be crying in my sleep.
Well, she was there for you, and she
Yeah,
obviously was a rock for you. You know. I mean.
and she never did ask me nothing about it,
Mm-hmm.
and I never told her
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
Now I wished I had her,
Mm-hmm.
but too late for that now.
Yeah. Wow. Well, um, I don't want to dwell too much on that stuff. So, I mean, I just want to thank you. I mean, for taking the time out of your extremely busy schedule that you have. So you're 97 years old,
Yeah.
and you've been all over the news. I've seen you all over the news recently here in Tulsa, and you're leaving December 8th to go to Belgium. And what's the purpose of your trip to Belgium?
I'll have to let Dave tell you. I guess just to see it, but he'll know the details.
Uh-huh.
Just to have the people see this
Yeah.
man here that fought in Belgium for them, for their freedom.
Yeah. Well said. I agree. So, so you're going to be going to some of the areas where you fought. Is that right? Or will you be just in the Bastogne area? Do you have any? I guess you don't know the itinerary yet, do you? You mentioned that earlier. So,
Sometime this week or next week.
oh, that'll be a fantastic trip, and you're going to accompany him on that.
My wife and I got tickets.
Oh, fantastic! Good. Well, there's in Bastogne, in the square. It's called McAuliffe Square because General McAuliffe, who said nuts, was there during the bulge, you know, and everything. And there's a Sherman tank there from the war. It's got a couple of like Panzerfaust holes in it, you know, and stuff, but it's a legit American tank from the region that was brought in there. There's a whole story about that tank and everything, where they found it, how they restored it, and everything. There's the Martison you guys are going to go to, which is the big memorial.
And something about a nuts celebration.
Oh, well, that would probably be about the time you guys go, is right when the bulge broke out, not too long after that. So, yeah, I'm sure there's probably a big McAuliffe celebration, you know, for nuts and everything. And then right outside of, right past the Martison, you go out of the parking lot, you turn right to go towards this little bitty town called Bizory, Bizory. It's about a mile or two to the right out of the back part of the parking lot. You go that way and you turn left at Bizory, and it takes you up towards a hilltop with some trees. That's where the 101st Airborne was dug in. If you ever watched Band of Brothers, those foxholes in there, you can still see the foxholes in the ground. That's where they fought. There's a memorial up there, and there's a whole bunch of, you know, the town of Foy is just past that. So lots of fascinating history there. So
You know, there's just lots of things happened that you'd think wouldn't have happened. Like you mentioned the tank there. There's one time we was cut off from our lines and in a farmhouse, and it had them farmhouses had their barns built right onto them. You know, there was cows in one end, the living quarters in another, and we took that over, and we got cut off there. There was a cow wounded back there that a shell had hit or something and broke down in her back end. Well, her back legs was gone,
Mm.
but she was still living. Well, I went back there and seen her suffering, you know, and I should have just cut her throat. That's what I should have done, but I didn't. I shot her to get her out of her misery. Shot her with that M1 rifle first, didn't kill her.
Oh,
I had shot her with that 45 though, and it killed her. And I know that let the Germans know where we were at.
oh,
That's the reason I shouldn't have been shooting, but all I was thinking about was that cow. Anyway, I heard a tank coming, and I walked up to the door in this old farmhouse, and it had a hole in the door where they pulled the latches through and string on them, and you could break the latches up. And I looked through that hole, and I was looking right down the barrel of a Sherman tank,
oh,
one of our tanks. And I knew that thing was going to shoot. I jumped behind the cement wall, and he blew that door off. The Germans had captured that tank, and they were using it.
oh my.
But that is the story on the tank. After he blew that door off, why, me and another sergeant was standing in an opening looking back, trying to figure us a way to get out of that night. We was going to leave there. And I had two good men, I know these good soldiers, watching that hole just in case something. And they let a German come in to shoot at us, and a shell hit right between us.
Oh,
And they never did see him. Anyway, why, we got out of that, and we did leave. We left it that night. But that Sherman tank was belonged to them. Then there was another deal real early one morning. Why, I think it was the second division that was in trouble. They was getting pushed around, and they ordered us to go help the division get out of their trouble. We was marching up this road with a column of twos, and it was raining and sleeting and snowing. And here come a bunch of tanks down the road. Well, the first thing I looked at them, I thought of our tanks, you know. It got a little closer, and they was German tanks.
oh,
And I didn't know what to do with them. We didn't have nothing to stop them with. And I just hollered, take a column of ones on each side of the road. So we just lined up on each side of the road. Them tanks drove right through the middle of us and never did recognize
oh, really?
being Americans.
Wow.
And after they got by, why, I had the radio man call battalion, tell them there's a bunch of tanks coming towards them. I never did hear how that happened.
So you guys didn't have any bazookas or anything like that to
No,
take them out or
no.
anything from the behind? No.
Well, all a bazooka could have done would been knock the tread off of one of them
Oh,
or
that's all you
something.
could do with that, huh?
And then we'd had them right in the middle of us, you know.
Yeah.
That did happen.
Mm.
We was in kind of a square with buildings all around us and just fighting on one side. And I had told them, don't shoot at no tanks with these bazookas, you know.
Yeah.
I said, we don't want no crippled tanks here in the middle of us. And sure enough, somebody shot one and knocked the tread off of it, and there the thing set. And we let them bring in some kind of another big piece of machinery and pull that tank out. We never fired a shot at it. We
Really?
let them get out and get it out of there.
Mm.
It's just all kind of things went on during the war.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it happened, you know.
Mm-hmm. Were there any moments that were difficult to explain? Any moments that were divine, that you felt like the odds of that happening were ridiculous one way or the other?
Well, don't think I can remember any incidents, but
Sure.
I'm sure there were just one right after another
Yeah.
that we wondered how we got out of it, you
Yeah.
know.
Do you have any soldiers that foresaw their own death?
What?
Any soldiers that foresaw their own death?
I don't know.
Had
I don't think
premonitions?
so.
Okay.
I don't know whether I told you about going into the house and my rifle not shooting.
No.
Well, it was during the winter and muddy and snow and everything. And every night when we quit fighting, I cleaned my rifle up the best I could. I made sure that everything was working good, you know. But this night it was cold. It was well, you'd have froze to death if you'd stayed outside.
Mm.
We took over a house and put a whole platoon in it. And you imagine putting a platoon in a house no bigger than either one of yours.
Yeah.
Anyway, me and another soldier, well, we was just, I'm not going to say we're standing up, but they were just hunkered down, you know, all over it. Me and this other soldier slept in the bathtub. See, man, two men in a bathtub, how much sleep you get. But you could sleep in anywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, why, that's the things that you remember that well, just happened.
Yeah.
You know, it was saving your own life, I guess you'd call it. But anyway, that was bad. There was other things that went on that you wonder how you got out of.
Yeah.
I don't think I've told you about going into the big house of that big building one night. We took this town over and was cleaning it out, you know, and dark come, why we we always stopped. We didn't fight after dark. Anyway, I went into this big auditorium and it's getting dark, but it had windows down on the end, and I could see a big man standing down in one of them windows down there. So I hollered at him and told him to put his hands up. I knew he couldn't understand what I said, but they knew to do what we said when we it hollered at one of them and to turn around, and he didn't move. I hollered at him again and said the same thing. He didn't move. I always carried that 45 when I went into a building. So I just up and shot at him and shot his head off. Walked down to see what I'd done then, and I'd shot Hitler. Shot Hitler's head plumb off. It was a chalk bust to Hitler.
That's too bad.
After that, every time my men got a chance, they'd tell, this is Sergeant Parker, he shot Hitler.
Well,
There was something going on constantly.
sure, man. I'm sure. I mean, do more and more memories come back
Yeah,
every time you kind of go through this? I can imagine.
yeah.
Yeah.
And since I've lost my wife, why, it's just way under worse than it was, you know. She took care of
Mm-hmm.
most of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
How do you deal with it? I mean,
hell, I don't.
yeah.
Uh, well, I do. I don't go to bed, for one thing. I just get 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, maybe not that much. Most of the time it's 2:30, 3 o'clock before I even lay down. As long as I'm doing something, why, seems like I write, I write things to just be writing. Some of it don't make any sense. Uh, I just do things like that. I draw
Oh,
pictures. I sit at the table. Don't intend to sit there. I intend to. Well, I don't go to bed. I don't.
mm,
I haven't slept in my bed in 3 years nearly. Uh, First couple of 3 months after she died, I went to bed and then go to sleep, and I wake up during the night feeling for her, and she's gone, and I couldn't go back to sleep, so I quit just going in there. I just lay down on the divan now, and sometimes it's 2:30, sometimes it's 5 in the morning. Like this morning, it was 3.
wow.
I woke up at 9. Had to get up, see what time I was supposed to meet.
Mm.
I said 10:30 by that time. He called me. Had to hurry a little bit to take a shower and shave, but it got it done.
So where's your son at now?
He lives about 5 or 6 miles from me,
Okay.
and lives west of Sperry.
Is he able to help you and kind of be emotional support for you?
Well, no,
No.
he's got such a big crowd of his own to look after.
Uh,
He ain't got much, but he does. He does.
yeah.
We talk a lot now. Uh, I go up every night to help him feed. Just to, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be doing nothing. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
I've still got some horses that's mine. And cattle, all I let him claim all of them. I ain't got no use for them, but I help feed them and take care of them,
Well,
that kind of thing.
well, I think we've been talking for about 3 hours here. So, uh, I want to just thank you for coming out. I want to thank you for sharing your story. Everybody that's going to be listening to this is going to want to hear more and know more about you and stuff. So, I'd love to be able to talk to you, even if we just have lunch or something like that after you get back from Belgium and everything. I'd love to keep in touch with you and, you know, you know, I'm a friend too. So, I mean, we'd be more than happy. You got lots of people around you that care about you. So, um, but anyway, anything you want to say in closing? Anything you want to just add at the end here?
Well, I don't know of anything to say except I'd tell the whole world I wish they'd get along with each other and be humans
Yeah.
and not hold everything against us that we've done because they've done things just as bad.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree with you.
one of the worst things we ever done was the way we treated the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they talk about massacres. This bunch on 21st Street don't know what a massacre was. Massacre was when our soldiers would go into Indian camp, kill all the kids and the women and the dogs with the men gone. Now that's massacre.
Mm-hmm.
But Indians are not holding that against us now. They forgive us.
Mm-hmm.
And the world ought to do that. America has tried to be good to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Still trying. In fact, I think sometimes they're trying too good.
Yeah.
But anyway, I can't change them.
Nah. Well, we never know. You never know what your words may do. So,
No, you sure don't. I don't
well,
know what kind of shape it's in now.
yeah. Well, hey, I want to thank you, and we'll just go ahead and we'll stop it here then. Okay.
Okay.